The Family Ness is an 80s cartoon about Angus and Elspeth McToot, a pair of Scottish siblings who live with their father on the banks of Loch Ness. Able to summon Loch Ness monsters with their thistle whistles, each episode sees the kids having a short comedic adventure with the various members of the Family Ness. All of the Loch Ness monsters have names that reflect their personality. Ferociousness is scary, sportiness is very active, cleverness is very clever, and so on. Despite being aimed at a very young audience, the show is fondly remembered by those who saw it, due to the bright, distinctive animation style of Peter Maddocks, and the opening and closing theme songs, which are absolute earworms. So grab your thistle whistles, watch the notes go floating across the bay, and let's look back at the Family Ness. My name's Anthony Robin, you can call me Tony, and this is Remembering the Family Ness. Loch Ness is a huge body of water in the Scottish Highlands. It's 22 miles long, 2 miles wide and 755 feet deep. The loch is the largest body of water in the British Isles by volume, and its dark peaty waters and unusual waves, caused by the loch's long narrow shape, have led to a number of supposed sightings and rumours of a beast or creature within the loch's great depths. The oldest recorded sighting of a monster or creature in Loch Ness dates all the way back to 565 AD, when St Columba made the sign of a cross at a water beast attacking locals in the River Ness, causing the creature to be dragged back as if by ropes and to flee. The beast was a local legend until the 1930s, when there were improvements to the A82 trunk road which runs alongside the loch. This led to an increase in traffic in the area, and there followed several reports of a beast or creature emerging from the dark waves of the loch. The national papers dubbed the creature the Loch Ness Monster, and it was soon affectionately known as Nessie. These reports were followed by the surgeon's photo taken in 1934. For many years this picture was the strongest evidence of a monster or creature living in Loch Ness, although the photo also had its critics and doubters. But in the 1990s, Robert Kenneth Wilson and his friend Christopher Spurlong admitted to faking the picture. They used a toy submarine with a head and neck crafted by Christian Spurling to fake the photo. Over the years, there would be many more sightings, reports, photos and sonar readings of something living in Loch Ness, all with varying levels of dubious quality, and sightings continue to this day. But in 1984, kids across the UK were introduced to not just one, but a whole family of Loch Ness monsters, the Family Ness. The Family Ness is the first animated cartoon, created and produced by Peter Maddocks and his animation company, Maddocks Cartoons. Peter Maddocks was an incredibly prolific British cartoonist. He produced daily sketches, political cartoons, a 10-year-long running newspaper comic called 4D Jones. He wrote books on how to be a cartoonist and created several volumes of cartoons, some of which had a more adult focus. He retired to Spain in the early 2000s, where he focused on creating fine art and contributed cartoons to the Euro Weekly News. He died in 2024 at the age of 96. Throughout the 1980s, Maddocks Cartoons would make free shows for the BBC, The Family Ness, Jimbo and the Jet Set and Penny Crayon. As well as this, they contributed animation to other studios' work. The Family Ness was first shown on the BBC in 1984. It ran throughout the 80s and 90s, with a final run on CBBC in the early 2000s. Many children from this time, myself included, have the opening and closing theme songs on a permanent loop in their heads. Each episode of the show is 5 minutes long, including about a minute's worth of credits. There are 25 episodes of the show in total, but the show is not currently available to view anywhere. It's not on the iPlayer or any of the major streaming services. VHS tapes of the show were available to purchase from the 80s through to the early 2000s, and a couple of DVDs were released, but these only seem to have 16 of the 25 episodes. You can currently find the complete run of the show on YouTube, but as far as I'm aware, there is currently no official way of watching the show. The Family Ness follows the adventures of Angus and Elspeth McToot. They live on the banks of Loch Ness with their father, Angus McToot. According to the show, Angus is the lock keeper of Loch Ness, but that is a lot of loch for one man to manage, and we never see him doing any work. He seems to spend his days playing the bagpipes, and occasionally threatening people that he believes are mistreating the loch. In the first episode of the show, the two kids find a monster, Silliness, stuck in the mud on the banks of Loch Ness. They help to get Silliness out, and are rewarded by Her Highness with a pair of thistle whistles. The thistle whistles allow the kids to summon Nessies from the loch, a great honour, as Nessies are not normally allowed to interact with humans. From then on, in every episode, the kids have an adventure with various members of the Family Ness. Sometimes the kids help the Nessies, such as keeping them hidden from monster hunters like Professor Dunkov. And in other episodes, the Nessies help the kids, even going so far as to occasionally help them to cheat in games of sport. As well as the kids and their father, the show has a number of recurring human characters who live in the villages around Loch Ness. Many of these characters have delightfully punny names. Angus McToot toots his bagpipes at the beginning of every episode. The local policeman is Sergeant McFuzz. The sweet shop is run by Mrs. McToffee. And a recurring monster hunter character with a pronounced German accent is called Professor Dunkov, which is apparently German for stupid. Most episodes also feature a number of one-off or background characters, many of whom end up spotting the Nessies. They either run off in terror or attempt to report the sighting to Angus McToot, who doesn't believe them, or to Sergeant McFuzz, who will accuse them of wasting police time. The monsters, or Nessies in the show, all have names that reflect their personalities, like Smurfs or the Seven Dwarfs. Ferociousness is a scary monster. Sportiness is an active monster. Cleverness is a clever monster. Her Highness is in charge of the monsters. There are many more Nessies in the series, some of whom we see a few times and some only once. There are also generic background Nessies appearing in crowd shots, again like Smurfs. And like the Smurfs, there seem to be a lot more male than female Nessies. Her Highness is the queen of the Nessies, and the only other female Nessie is Loveliness. So I assume that the Nessies are organised like ants or a beehive, with one queen in charge and all the males being used as worker drones. But I don't think that the Nessies are a hive. I think that they would be a school like fish, or a pod like whales. I'm going to say a pod like whales, as we can see from Loveliness's design that the Nessies are mammals. Anyway, the show was made with traditional cell animation, and the whole show is drawn in the distinctive cartoony style of Peter Maddocks. The characters all have large round eyes and a distinctive, simplified, cartoony look. Peter Maddocks said of his cartoons, "You have to be able to demonstrate a sense of fun in the line. It's no good if the words are funny, but the drawing doesn't convey that fun." The show does make use of simplified animation, reusing sequences and using pans and zooms to imply more movement. However, it's a huge leap forward from earlier UK cartoons, like Henry's Cat or the vomit-inducing Rhubarb and Custard. And this was at a time when everything was still hand-drawn. Even Disney weren't using their CAPS animation system at this point, and Peter Maddocks certainly didn't have a Disney-sized budget. Given the time that the show was made, and the resources they had available, I think they created a very charming and unique animation style. The show is set in Scotland, and has everything I would expect to see from a Scottish show. Kilts, bagpipes, gingers, and so on. Even the dog is called Spodden. And that's a little bit of a problem with the show. As far as I can tell, no actual Scottish people were involved in making it. So we have a very stereotypical view of the Scots and Scotland. The show even has a couple of characters who are supposed to be Scottish mayors, but Scotland doesn't have any mayors in real life. I've not heard of any Scottish people actually being offended by this show, but I'm sure they'll let me know in the comments below if they were. All the voices in the show were provided by Peter Hawkins and Susan Sheridan, both of whom are very well known voice actors. Peter Hawkins' work includes Bill and Ben, where he invented their language, Oddle Poddle, as well as all the voices in Captain Pugwash, the original voice for the Daleks in Doctor Who, and being cast as the voice of Gromit, before Nick Park decided to make him a mute character. Susan Sheridan was the voice of Princess Alonwe. Alonzi?
I'm Princess Alonwe.
Was the voice of Princess Alonwe in Disney's The Black Cauldron. She was also the voice of Noddy in Noddy in Toyland, Moonmin in Moonmin Valley, and most importantly, she was the original Trillian in the radio play of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Both actors would do voices for Peter Maddocks' next show, Jimbo and the Jet Set, and Peter Hawkins would go on to be the voice of Dennis in Penny Crayon. The opening and closing theme songs of the Family Ness were written by father and son duo Roger and Gavin Greenway, both of whom have had extensive careers outside of kids' cartoons. The show's main theme song plays over the opening credits. Angus McToot plays his bagpipes, and various members of the Family Ness leap out of the water to grab the notes before diving back beneath the waves. The show's closing theme, Nessie in the Zoo, plays over the ending credits, where Angus McToot's notes continue to float above the loch, but in these closing credits, no Nessies appear. An extended version of the closing theme, Nessie in the Zoo, was made into an episode called You'll Never Find a Nessie in the Zoo. In this episode, Angus and Elspeth watch as a travelling zoo train passes by the loch. The song and the episode are surprisingly critical of zoos. Nessie in the Zoo was actually released as a single in the UK, but it failed to crack the top 40. My favourite episode of the Family Ness is Hungry Ness and the Diving Bell. In this episode, Captain Standfast wants to explore the loch with a diving bell. The diving bell is very small, so he's brought a very small sailor to operate it. Submariner McSquirt. McSquirt is delightfully tiny, being even smaller than Elspeth. And he speaks in a teeny tiny high-pitched voice that makes me laugh.
Aye, Captain, you're coming over loud and clear.
Angus and Elspeth realise that McSquirt might end up discovering the Nessies, so they blow their thistle whistles in an attempt to warn the Nessies. But Hungry Ness is the one who turns up. Hungry Ness eats the diving bell. Submariner McSquirt thinks he's in a cave and gets out to explore Hungry Ness's mouth. He mistakes the uvula for a punching bag and punches it, causing Hungry Ness to choke and spit out the diving bell. Captain Standfast sees Hungry Ness, but after he's hit by the diving bell, and with McSquirt saying that he didn't see any monsters, Captain Standfast decides he must have been seeing things. And the episode ends with Captain Standfast deciding that he needs a cup of tea. The show isn't laugh out loud funny, and doesn't have jokes in the traditional sense, rarely having a setup and punchline, but every episode is a short, light-hearted, good time, with bright, appealing animation, excellent voice work, and a very jolly energy. I do think only very young children would be kept captivated for an extended viewing session, but the Family Ness is still very charming to watch, albeit for a few episodes at a time, even as an adult. But do beware, the theme songs will be stuck in your head for the rest of the day. And if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll be back soon with videos on Jimbo and the Jet Set and Penny Crayon. Until next time guys, I've been Anthony Robin, you can call me Tony. Bye-zy bye.